Hi, I'm Chayale.
Hi, I'm Hinty. Welcome to your Relationshift. Join in our conversation where we explore
The nuance and beauty of Torah's perspective on relationships.
Hey Kyla.
Hey.
Okay, I am super excited. Today we are talking about the third way. So for anyone who's not as relationship savvy, as someone who's like, oh yeah, the third way, I know the third way. Let's talk about the principle. Let's hear the exact wording of the principle and let's dive into it because it's actually probably one of the most nuanced principles that we talk about. Really powerful, but it takes a lot of skill to actually implement. So let's see what we can do here.
Okay, this is an awesome principle. I think revolutionary, actually.
Mm,
I mean, all of Relationshift is revolutionary, but this is one of the principles that really speaks to that revolution. It offers something that I think is very, very unique relative to just conventional ways of operating. So I'm
mm,
excited, really excited. Principle is just very simply I choose the third way. I respect him and honor myself. That's the title. And like you said, has to be explained and explored. What are we talking about? The nuances. And yeah, let's do it.
yeah. Okay, so let's start with the first part, which is probably not as fun to talk about, but it is really important to talk about. I respect him. So from everything we've been talking about up until now, we know, right? We know what respect is, or let's do a little review. Like, what is respect?
Okay, so respect is space and value, creating space for the other, which is usually also just checking in with myself. How much have I climbed into somebody else's mind and heart, and how much space is there for them to be a whole person? And value. Am I seeing their value? Am I recognizing it? And am I noticing it? Am I focusing on it genuinely?
Beautiful, beautiful. So space and value, which reflect on my receptivity, my overall willingness to be receptive towards this person. Um, so I love that. I love how you just like simplified it in those two words. And I think that's kind of an important thing to bring in over here. When we're talking about the third way, we're often speaking about a specific situation that you want to be implementing this principle with. Um, and in order to do that, it's also important that outside of this example or this experience, am I experiencing respect on a wider spectrum? Like, in general, am I giving space? In general, am I receptive? Am I seeing value in who he is as a person? And I think that's an important thing to kind of bring in over here. It's kind of like when people talk about how the bedroom reflects outside of the bedroom. So, in the same way, in a specific situation, also reflects outside of the specific situation. It's important to be working on this overall. Respect is something that I think it's an important thing to be working actively on all the time, not just in this situation. Because if a woman were to just say, okay, now I have to respect him so that I could find the third way with him, it feels manipulative and you're trying to get somewhere. And that by definition is not what we're talking about here. So I think it's important thing to bring in that building respect is a constant.
Yeah, I think it's a very good point. And just maybe to speak a bit more to that, because I know this comes up also in coaching, where a woman will try and be respectful in isolated situations, but is not in a place where she's fundamentally respecting. And one of the examples that like I sometimes will bring to a client is the like holistic healing concept. Like you can only really be healthy if you're addressing the whole body. When we isolate parts of the body to treat and we ignore other parts of the body, and this is something that medicine is, getting better and better at, or just in general as a community, we're having more awareness around this. So, and you'll see it in exercise, and you'll see it in every area of health, that healing is just, now we're talking physically, is the whole body needs to be. So if someone's not sleeping but they want to, address their headaches, you're obviously going to be told, like, it's a lifestyle issue. So yeah, we could give you a painkiller technically that will subdue your headache right now, but if you want to deal with not being somebody who has headaches, then we have to look at the general picture and treat it holistically. And I think respect is the holistic treatment for the relationship. So if you want to come and implement a principle, but it has to be in the bigger picture of respect, 100%.
Oh my goodness, I love that. Like, I remember going to physical therapy, and there was this one muscle that just like was super weak. But instead of working on that muscle, which I thought that's what we were going to be doing, we're working on all the muscles around that muscle, which was so interesting. Like, we have to build this whole muscle group to support that muscle. Can't just work on that one muscle that's really experiencing the weakness. And I love that you're saying that. And respect is just surrounding this whole entire experience. It's an all-inclusive. So what does that look like practically on the ground? I do think that sometimes we're just not aware, just can't even see masculine values because they're not feminine values. So it might be something that we're just needs teaching, just needs pointing out, and then you could start seeing it. Sometimes a value isn't our value, and it kind of will clash with our value. So it's hard to appreciate it as an individual value when it's something that's different than mine. So it's really a broadening and a curiosity and a loosening that I think is also important to bring in over here when I'm starting to look at, okay, where can I see value in the way that my husband parents? Where can I see value in the way that my husband just like functions, how he brings in a parnasa, how he takes care of himself, how he interacts with God and Yiddishkeit. Is there something there that I can value, that I could see? And it's actually it's funny we're talking about muscles, but I really look at it, when we look at value, as a muscle that you can build all the time, because the more that you concentrate and work out that muscle of seeing value in your husband, by the way, other people too, it will just start growing. Like, you'll start seeing value all the time, everywhere, as opposed to just missing things or seeing lack instead. So it's really a technique. It's really a muscle building experience. Perspective building experience, but look at it as like the perspective being a muscle that you want to build.
Yeah, so we're saying you lay the groundwork for this principle, is that there is already in place a very, very strong respect. You're familiar with and capable of seeing value.
The next step is, and let's just talk about space for a minute also. What does space mean when we're talking about respect? Space means, I mean, like literal space. There's a big part of it, which is lack of expectation. So there isn't a neediness. There's a lot of ownership there where you're not like clawing at something. There's just respecting his time, is giving him space. Looking at circles of ownership and letting him have his own circle of ownership is also all about space. So both of those things, space and value, are both very important. Anything else you want to add on space?
Well, I think maybe we address this in respect, but just because we're reviewing, especially in the context of this principle, which often comes up in ideas, suggestions, in how your husband thinks about things versus how you think about things. So this is a big piece, to give space to somebody to have ideas.
Mm.
Like just to, and I guess if you want to talk about exercising the muscle, what that looks like is in conversation. You can do this in any conversation. Just ask yourself, am I giving space to this person to have whatever idea they're having? Or from the onset, have I shut it down and, just dismissed it? Any opinion or any idea that anybody has is my instinct to shut it down. And then specifically when it comes to your spouse, where there's a lot more at stake and you're a lot more vulnerable and potentially there's a lot of fear involved. So have you been able to create space for his ideas and his perspectives, or is that something that feels too hard or too scary? And that has to be looked at, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you create space? And if you can't, what's stopping you from being able to create that space?
I love that. I love that because a lot of what we talk about, even just like on a very practical level, is like even what's your body language when he's coming to you with an idea or he suggests something. And a part of me wants to actually act it out here. So for all of those who are listening, maybe you will become viewers instead for this episode. But I would love to like act this out and show people what it looks like when a husband asks or suggests or brings forth an idea, and the subtle nuances in a woman's energy that lets him know that she is not open, not giving space to that idea.
Okay, so you want me to pitch an idea?
Okay, yeah, I'll do it.
Okay.
Sure.
So I
Okay,
think.
so I'm gonna do the not good response first, and then I'll do the positive
Okay.
response first.
Okay.
The relationships
So
response. This is the old me.
old you.
Old me. Okay, let me get there. Okay, hold on. Okay, I'm there.
I have a really good idea. I think that over Hanukkah break, we should get an RV and we should go camping with the kids.
Okay, that was terrible, Kyla, because I love that idea. You have to give me something that I wouldn't love. Try again. Take two.
Um, okay.
I'm getting back into it. Okay, ready?
Okay. I have a really good idea. I think that you should start a weekly group for women
Mm.
where you do like coffee, like you go out for coffee together and it's like a chat, get to know each other for the community. Like it will build like friendships, doesn't have to like be about anything specific, just like a weekly like meetup, like social, kind of just like a social gathering that doesn't have like any other goal other than to connect people socially. I think it'll be really nice.
Okay, so I don't even know what I would verbally respond, and that's not even important. Did you see how much was happening inside of me the whole time? I literally had to think about the old ways that I used to think. So the old ways that I used to think was like, don't you know me? Can't you see how much I do already? Why are you making suggestions for me? Like, so much defensive energy. My muscles are like in my around my mouth are feeling like I want to twitch into crying. Like, why are you asking me to do something that's so uncomfortable for me? Like, everything is so defensive and hurt and pain, right? And I'm showing that in all of my body language. Okay. And at a certain point, I just tuned you out because I couldn't even believe you were saying something like that to me. So now you could try it again. And this time I'm actually going to hear what you said, because I heard something about like social gathering and I was just, whoa. Did you see that?
Yeah, I think an important piece was even before the nature of the request, just the fact that that I'm in this case, your husband is coming to you with an idea for you is already a reason to shut down. Why do you have ideas for me? So there's already like a whole set of beliefs or fears maybe around the fact that he's even making a suggestion for you. What the suggestion was is completely irrelevant if you already lost it at that point. If you're still in, and then the nature of the suggestion is like, do you know me? I don't relate to that. So then, okay, you're out at that point. It's just a matter of how quickly you're exiting. Like either you shut it down from the first second, or like you heard the first second, but then just opted out right away. So
Right. As soon as you said I have an idea, I was already, ooh, no, not good. This is not going to be good.
why do
Yeah,
you have
I
ideas?
definitely agree. And I also think it's very important what you're highlighting, which is, and I know for myself, it was very much like that, where if someone came to me with an idea, I would feel as if what I don't have good enough ideas, like I'm not leading my life correctly. Why do you feel right? It was an immediate defensive reaction. Like, why are you thinking that I'm incomplete?
Mm.
Right. Which is not their fault at all. It was obviously something that was lacking in my own essential value, but it was definitely coming up. So if someone brought something to me, it was an immediate shutdown because it made me think, which was obviously something I was already thinking about myself, was a sense of I'm incomplete.
Yeah,
Okay.
which is an important point. It could just be like any number of things could be getting in the way of being able to create the space. If a person's going to be breaking down what's stopping them, so like you're saying, it becomes for you, let's say it was about essential value, someone having ideas for me meant something about my worth and my value. So that's what shuts you down. And in any situation it could be a number of things, but it would be important for the person to kind of think about what's causing this intense resistance.
Yes. And it takes a lot of introspection to go there, to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now let's try it again.
Okay. Hey, I have an idea
Yeah.
for you.
Okay.
I think that it would be really nice if you did a weekly coffee gathering to have people just have an opportunity to socialize with each other. Nothing more, nothing less. Just that way people can kind of get to know each other better, feel more connected, and it's just casual and easy. And yeah, just like a little chat, get together, coffee situation for the community. Woman.
I love that you're thinking about me. That's so sweet. Huh. I have to think about that one. I am going to percolate on that. Thank you. Okay.
You're welcome. Anytime.
Obviously.
I have more. I have more where that came from.
Yeah. I love your ideas. Okay. So I thought that was fun. I think it's important to just create a visual. I think it's cool.
Yeah,
Some people are visual learners. I'm an auditory
it's
learner, but
entertaining.
there's, it's definitely different. Like what happened here? I was trusting that you're a good person in my life. I'm touched that you're thinking about me. It doesn't mean that I'm any less. I'm grateful that someone thinks that I'm capable of doing something more than I'm already doing. There's an immense amount of trust there. You think that I'm capable of leading a group, getting people together. You think that this will be nice for me too. You care, right? Like I'm just open to hearing all the value that you're bringing to me with this idea. And
Hmm.
there's so much value there in your suggestion. Um, you come up with an idea, you're courageous enough to offer it. Um, it's different, it's out of the box. You care about me. There's so many values there for me to appreciate in what you're bringing. But I know for myself, I was totally shut off from seeing all the values that you were bringing. Now, we did this exercise kind of more to illustrate what space looks like, just energetically. But in the end, you also see how space, just like opening up and allowing whatever is coming at you to be received, immediately leads into also seeing value. So
Yeah,
they work in tandem.
yeah. Which I think is nice because what that means is that naturally we would value people and their suggestions, or specifically our spouse. We do have a lot of value for our spouse, so we're not um, morphing into a new creature. We're saying when you take whatever's stopping you, whatever's kind of in the way, and you move it out of the way, then turns out you're keen to see value and kind of just show up with that curiosity and that openness and that positivity, and also if you're connection minded, to see the connection opportunity here, which is if you take my suggestion to be she cares about me, which I think leans on the trust the connection principle, which we spoke about previously. So then the fact that she's bringing a suggestion to me, or he's bringing a suggestion to me, is out of care. She thinks I'm capable. He thinks I'm capable. So all of these also lean on the fact that I want to assume, and I want to take the angle of he's coming from a good place, which means that's an opportunity to receive that and feel connected over that, as opposed to the shutdown. And then I think that the important piece, which this principle brings new to the table, is and I honor myself, which is you do not have to then go and do it. Which is obviously a fear that could come up, because now you're panicking that you have to create a social gathering weekly, and that feels too much or just doesn't feel right for you for whatever reason. So that could just choke you. Just the idea of, okay, now I have to do it. Or if I don't do it, then it's going to do something to my relationship. So that's where I respect him and honor myself now that I've created space. And I see tremendous value. I'm also in a position to get quiet with myself and see what is it that I really want. And then I can share that. So you can demonstrate what that would sound like.
Beautiful, beautiful. So I love that. I love that there's an immense amount of trust that comes in over here. And the fact that your energy is open and trusting and willing to explore is so huge, because like the name suggests, when we're looking at the third way, the idea is it's not what he wants necessarily. It's not what she wants necessarily. We're opening up to something to be born from the two of them. And all that comes from a space of curiosity and openness and trust. It's very hard to create something new that both of you are going to be happy with without all of that in place. So I think it's important you're very much bringing that trust, the connection in as well.
Yeah. So yeah. If you want to carry on running through the example, we could give a little bit more. Let's say your husband is bringing you this example for the community that you are rabbi and rebbetzin of, this suggestion, and you don't want to do it, or you don't feel like it's right for you. So how does that sound?
Yeah. So first of all, I would give myself that space to think about it. Like, he brought something to me. It's so beautiful that he brought that to me. All the respect and space and value is there. Amazing. Now I have to get quiet with myself, which I think is also a huge skill. I know for myself, I had to learn what that looks like, because my old way of thinking was, I thought respect was doing what he said. I think that's taught to us. I think that's somehow, some way relayed to us that if your husband says something, you have to do it.
Right.
And that's what respect is. And we're kind of undoing that idea and saying respect is space and value. And it doesn't mean that you have to just follow along and do whatever it is. Like, you're not a victim to this relationship or this specific question. So a very important piece is that you're a person who receives from your husband, not just like someone who doesn't even have a voice, right? So this is where we really start seeing the power of femininity and what it means to be a true receptive Kaylee Makabel for your husband. So that was hard for me to start listening into that voice. Like, what do I want? Where is my voice? What do I want in this specific situation? So it was unclear. I have to get quiet. I have to get quiet for myself. So sometimes I would have to leave that question right there and say, I need to percolate. I need to think about this and take some space for myself, journal about it, talk about it with a friend, talk out loud, and like see what bubbles up, what comes up. Now, I do know that the answer to this specific question you're asking could be one thing a year ago, and then another thing a year later. just because I'm also opening up and learning myself, and things are also dynamic and changing all the time. So it could be that even if I say, even if I decide ultimately that what I want is I don't want to do this gathering, or I'm not up for it right now, I don't want to shut the door as if like I can't and it's not happening and it's never going to happen. I think an important thing is to recognize what I want right now is to keep doing what I'm doing. And I love that idea. And I would love to implement certain aspects of what he's bringing to the table, like see the value in what he's bringing and open up something new. So I think it's important to look at that, because I guess the more that I've become receptive is I don't want to just shut a door, because even I know for myself that maybe, 4 years ago that would have been completely off the table. But now I'm very open to that suggestion. So I don't want to shut something down because I'm always developing.
Yeah, it's a really valuable point, that even if we're going to say no to something now, we're not saying no to the idea. We might be just saying not right now. And we're saying yes to the idea, yes to the value of the idea. And I don't know, right now it doesn't feel like something I could take on. And I want to keep it open. Definitely just see, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. So, like, practical response, I think in the moment, I would reflect to him. I would tell him that there's so much value in what he's saying. So, like, even just like my open body language is at least letting his idea land, which is so important. Like, I didn't just like wall it off. I let it land. I hear you. Wow, that's a big idea. Or the even deeper receptivity, which my immediate response to you was, I feel so cared for. I love that you're thinking about me, that you have ideas for me. That's super receptive, seeing so much value in what he's bringing. And I have to think about it is already a third way, where it's saying, I have a voice and I want to think about what you're saying. If I come back to the conversation and I again reflect the value of, I love that you had this idea and I hear how much you think it would be important for women to gather. I think that's really important too. And I and then this is, what do I want? So this is the nuance. It's not what I don't want, right? Or what am I afraid of, or what am I concerned about, which would have been my reaction in the past. And I'm too scared to do something like that, or that feels way too overwhelming for me, or I don't know how to do it, right? Like kind of like the complaining or concern or fear, as opposed to the creative energy of, I have a desire here of what I want. So there's like a lot of clearing that has to happen with myself before I come back to that conversation with my husband. Me personally, that would have to happen. Like, what am I afraid of? Is that what's holding me back? Is it a fear? Is it a concern? Or is it just like capacity right now? Like, I just don't have space in my schedule right now. Or is it, I love that idea and I want to do it in 2 months from now? Like, what do I actually want? There's a lot of clearing that has to happen. So coming back to you with your idea, I think if I wanted to say no to it, it would have to be, I just feel like there's so many answers that I could give, but I think it would be something along the lines of, personally, me, like, I see so much value in that. And I would love to start doing that after Tishrei. I would love to implement that as soon as I finish giving this workshop, in 8 weeks or so. So there was like the receiving what he brought, and I want to do this, just not right now.
Right. It could even be, I want to rethink that in 2 months when my schedule is less full.
Yeah. If it's something that I'm really not up for, it could also just be like, and I can't. And I can't right now.
So let's look at that, just because of the third way piece, right? So let's say your husband is bringing this to you. Let's say it's let's make it just expand a little bit. You and your husband run some sort of community, or it's a family where you and your husband do shlichus. You have a shul, or you have a Chabad house, or you're involved in some sort of community work and your husband brings you an idea that he feels is important for the community to progress, to grow, and your response is this: I'm not in a position to do it. So what we want to look at with the third way is a possibility of this still happening in another way. So if this really needed to happen, then I don't know, your husband could say something like, or the rabbi or the husband in the scenario could say something like, okay, I hear you. Maybe I'll ask Rivka if she could take this on right now, and she could run these groups. And you might feel a sense of relief. Okay, great, it could happen, and I don't have to be on top of it.
Right. I also feel like bringing more, I love that, meaning being open to a different suggestion and see what comes up. I think that I also could be a little bit more creative in voicing and honoring what I want. So, for example, if I were to say, I love that idea, I see so much value in that idea, I wish I could do it in a way that is filling for me too. Like that would fill me up. Right. So, what I'm doing is I'm expressing I'm open, I'm curious, I'm willing to see the value in it. And I also want something here. So what if my husband, let's say, said, oh, so you're willing and open to hearing my idea. You see value in women getting together and gathering. What if you made like a Dvar Torah hike? And that could fill you up because I know you love nature. So like, what if you took all the women and you went on a hike with them and you shared with them Dvar Torah? What do you think about that idea? Whoa, totally different idea. Totally different than what he was suggesting before or what I had in my vision of what he was suggesting before. Now he's trying to take my desire, break what he was trying to bring, which was his value, his suggestion, his idea, and he's trying to create something new, like a third way. Am I open to that? Am I open to hearing this new birthed idea between his value that he's bringing, my desire that I was bringing, and now there's something new?
Which is what's so cool about the third way is that when we're basically, just to speak to the philosophy of the principle a little bit, we typically operate in an either or mindset. And I'm sure people are familiar with the word compromise. When there's conflict, you need compromise. This is why I think this principle is so revolutionary, is because that was always the understanding. If there's conflict, you need compromise. So if I think my kid should go to one school and my husband thinks that the kid should go to another school, so then we have to compromise. Only problem is that, as most people are familiar with, for example, even in that situation, what exactly is the compromise? The kid's going to the first school half a year and the second, no. Compromise is going to be basically one of us not getting what we want.
Someone making concessions, like someone
Yeah,
is giving up on
someone's
something.
going to give, right?
Yeah.
So compromise,
Or both of them are going to give a little bit.
even if it is a situation where we could both give a little, so then, but I didn't want 50% of what I wanted. I wanted 100% of what I wanted. So if you tell me, okay, now you only get 50%, I'm not getting what I want. I'm not talking about like, I need a diamond ring. I'm talking about things that are important to people that we care very deeply about, like our children, like our careers, like our relationships. It could be for mundane, it could be for those things also, but it's that idea that compromise is basically either one person loses completely or everybody loses partially. So you're giving up on whatever it is a little bit, or sometimes a lot. And the third way is, before you get to a solution, because that's going to throw you off, let these two seemingly opposites coexist. And this goes back to also the idea that Hashem is infinite and there's space in Hashem's world, more space than we can imagine. So even though we feel like these two ideas can't coexist, or these two realities can't coexist, trust Hashem, trust that his world is big enough that these two things can coexist. They can both be true at the same time, for starters. And then when they sit together and there's a connection formed by what we just demonstrated, where you appreciate and you value and you create space for, then there could be the birth of a third reality, which it's not a mix of the two, it's something greater than both of them. So it's going to hold the values of 1 and 2, but it's going to be more than, it's going to be greater than both. So it's going to incorporate them, but in a way that you didn't know was possible, in a new reality that takes either the idea or both people up into a new space, into a higher level, so I mean, the best example of this is the Torah. The Torah is associated. It says the Torah is given in the 3rd month to a nation of 3, and it's connected with this number 3 because 1 is singular, 2 is conflict, and 3 is very deep unity. And that's the 3rd way. So there is a little bit of a like an unknown piece when you're entering in. You're just kind of like, I know something will come, which is another space that you have to keep open of. There's a third, there's the Torah reality, there's God's reality, which God does hold opposites in a very powerful way. And he brings them together to create realities. Even in your example, this new idea that's born of a hike. Your husband's now thinking of you and what you like and what would be meaningful to you. And then that sounds amazing. Like, wow, that's such a great idea. Why bring people together in a different setting than, it's whatever initial goal that he had with the first idea is maybe going to be achieved even much greater with this new idea.
Yeah. Which is so beautiful. I think a lot of it also depends on the mashpia makabel dynamic. I think it's an important thing to bring in over here because even like what you were saying, like buying a diamond ring, you could think that a husband buys his wife jewelry and in a way, like he's being compromised, right? He's working so hard, he's making all this money, and then he has to spend thousands of dollars on, this piece of jewelry that only she benefits from, right? And it feels like it feels like let's say he's being compromised, for example. But looking at it like that is ignoring or rather completely disqualifying the chesed and generosity of the mashpia. A man, when he is giving and when he is being mashpia and he is received, feels like he is winning. He is winning because he's experiencing what he's supposed to be doing, being mashpia. He wants this. And to not appreciate that and not see that is such a deep dismissal of who a mashpia is and his generosity and what he wants, his kindness, that he's happy to buy his wife jewelry. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is beautiful. And obviously she's happy because she's receiving something very beautiful, but for her to not appreciate that he feels like he's winning in buying her that piece is tremendous. So as much as he's happy to be able to give to her, and it's not like he feels like he's compromising, he feels good in giving to her, it's important also for a woman to feel good and delight in her receptivity and trust and openness. And I think like bringing the mashpia makabel dynamic in, what is a mashpia and what is a makabel is an important thing to remember too. Her desire is beautiful. What she wants is beautiful. Sometimes it's so hard for a woman to even voice her desire or trust that he would even be willing to hear her desire. Let's say if she shared it once before and it was never, heard before, it's hard for her to even say it. So I think bringing that here is also, it's an important part of the conversation.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's very important in terms of the woman just understanding how important it is for her to show up in honoring herself. Like her husband does want a person that he can bring things to, not just, a doormat, or either way, like if there's like this passive obedience or full rejection, neither one are what we're trying to achieve. And then if in some cases a woman feels like she needs to protect her husband from his ideas, which very often does happen to women, like he comes with an idea about something that he could do for his wife, or he could do for the family, or he could do for himself, and she's shutting it down because she wants to protect him from being compromised in some way, because that's what she thinks might happen. So yeah, understanding the mashpia wanting to give, and how the feminine comes alive when we step into that receptive mode, also creates the setting for this to play out.
I want to give some examples because I feel like it's very nuanced. I think honoring yourself is very nuanced. Some women just don't fully comprehend it. I want to speak a little bit more about that and give some practical examples.
Yeah, let's do it.
Do you think that you can bring an example that highlights this?
Yeah, I think this example that I heard from Saragita, she shared it in a workshop, and it was a great example because I think it has a few important pieces in it. So she said that a husband came to his wife that he wanted one of their children to change schools. Um, for whatever reason, he wasn't happy, he wasn't doing well, and he had a different idea of a different school that he should go to that he thought would be much better.
Mm,
Um, and she just shut it down. Like it wasn't even a conversation. And then he came again and also just shut it down. And basically, he kept on bringing this up, and she kept on shutting it down. And
mm,
in addition to the conversation not being able to happen, obviously became a source of tension between them. He's trying to come forward with something, and she keeps shutting it down. So eventually, with this awareness, she realized what she was doing, and she had that moment to kind of get quiet with herself and think, why can she not hear this? Like, what happens every time he brings it up, that she just panics.
mm,
And it turned out that the school was a commute. It wasn't nearby. And she did carpool in the house. And when she heard our son should go to that school, she heard, I'm going to spend 2 hours a day in the car. And
mm.
that was it. There was nothing to talk about.
Right.
Um, she like,
Like, not
and then
happening.
you could,
Done.
mhm. Yeah, you could
Not
add to it,
happening.
like, why would he even suggest that? Like, does he think I'm a taxi driver? Like, whatever layers, depending on the given situation, you might like compound that with multiple more layers of that would add to the frustration. Um, so when she realized that, and also this idea of wanting to give space and wanting to give value, so the space and value was, okay. First of all, he has an idea, and let's just give space for that. The value was, here's a father who's thinking about his child. Here's a father who cares about his child's education. He's trying to come up with solutions. Um, and let's honor that. Let's be grateful for that. You could have a parent that's completely checked out. Um, so, and I think just to add one more piece, she had like said to him, every school has its own problems. It's not going to help to switch schools. Like, I'm just going to replace these problems with other problems. Like, it's not even a good idea. So going back, once she realized why she did not like the idea, she was able to say, okay, maybe it is a good idea. And there's definitely tremendous value to the fact that her husband is bringing this idea to her. And also, she does not want to do that drive. So then she was able to come to her husband and share all of that. I appreciate and value, and I'm so grateful for you being such a concerned, connected father. The idea, it's a good idea, and I can't do that drive right now. I won't be able to get him there. And as the story goes, her husband said, "Oh yeah, I never intended for you to drive. I was going to hire a driver. For sure, it would be crazy for you to do that drive."
Wow.
And that was it.
Meaning he was even, first of all, his intention just like never even had space to.
He
like
never got to say
the
that part
idea
of
was
it.
never even like, it wasn't even able to fully play out. And then she would have heard the care and concern that he already had with his original idea, which is so interesting. And it was such a powerful exploration also for her to see like, what's shutting me down? What's happening? What are my concerns? And I think it's so cool that her response, which was, and I can't even do the drive. It wasn't even like such an inspiring, honoring her desire. It was just like, I can't do this. And he still showed up with a third way. Like, I have this original idea where I'm going to be even more chesed, right? I'm going to be even more generous, not just pay for a new school, thinking about my son, like all the generosity and value that's there. I also am willing to pay a driver every single day to drive this kid an hour away and an hour back. That's tremendous. That's a beautiful story.
I
That's
think
really cool.
what you said before, like, you might not even be there might be more pieces. A person is not going to keep talking if you shut them down. They're not going to tell you their full idea, or they won't maybe even be able to access their full idea if there's an immediate resistance and an immediate shutdown. So you might feel like you're struggling in your communication with your spouse. And, I'm definitely thinking of, particular clients who this principle really opened up the communication for them. Like, maybe my husband's not talking to me because I'm not listening. It's very hard to talk to somebody that just shuts everything down. And then a woman do feel like, my husband doesn't talk to me, doesn't want to spend time with me, he doesn't want to share with me about his day or share with me his ideas. So, this is something to look at. May or may not be.
Yeah. And it's funny to say this, but husbands have a better read of wives than you think. He could also just see in the twitching around your mouth, or just like where your eyes go as the conversation is going. Like, you might not even have to verbally shut down the conversation. He already knows that energetically you just shut down. And again, that generosity comes up where he's like, I don't want to push her. I don't want to make her angry. I don't want to ruin this. I want to stay good. So not wanting to pursue the conversation because he doesn't want to dysregulate you. And that's the reason why this conversation is going nowhere, because of his care. Again, coming back to care. There's a lot to explore. I want to give this a little bit more time. I think we should.
Yeah.
I also think let's invite people to share. I'm sure there's wins out there that people could share where they have seen the third way show up for them.
Please. Yeah, that would be amazing.
Right? Like, share with us your wins or challenges. And we could bring that to the next episode and talk about it more extensively, even to bring more clarity.
That sounds awesome. We would love to hear your feedback, thoughts, and questions.
Please leave a comment below or email us at yourrelationship@gmail.com.
Looking forward to connecting with you.
See you next time.